Emily, now that your father has passed, and I've already received the $200 million inheritance, I don't need you anymore, you can go." Her words hit like a splash of ice water cutting through the silence in the room. It was my mother, staring at me with that same cold look she never tried to hide. Yes, it hurt of course it did, but deep down I saw it coming. I took a deep breath, gave a polite smile, and replied, "All right, I'll leave." The days that followed were painfully quiet. Then one day the phone rang. It was her, the woman who claimed she didn't need me. "Emily, where's my share of the inheritance?" Her voice trembled, part panic, part rage. She never imagined that the man she constantly overlooked had planned everything down to the last detail. My father was always 10 steps ahead. Before we dive in, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and tap the notification bell. Welcome to Revenge Scales, where justice never misses. My name is Emily. I'm 27 years old, and until recently I lived with my parents. From the outside, we probably looked like the perfect family. My father, my role model, was a self-made businessman who built his company from nothing. He was a man of principle and always followed through on his word. No matter how demanding his work was, he always made time for me. I remember him coming home exhausted, still smiling, asking, "What's our plan today, kiddo?" He was my foundation. My mother was a different story. She reminded me of those daytime TV stars, always dressed to impress, always at some social event, but emotionally unavailable. She would say she'd spend time with me, then cancel last minute. She felt more like a guest in the house than a parent. If my father was the backbone of our family, she was more like the surface paint, nice to look at but lacking substance. As I got older, I admired my dad even more. I dreamed of working beside him, learning his trade, and carrying on his legacy. What I didn't know was that he had quietly been preparing me for something bigger, and the ending, well, no one could have predicted it. When I entered my 20s, our simple chats turned into business talks. He taught me the essentials: leadership, accountability, and strategy. My mom stayed the same, present in body, absent in spirit. The only time she showed real emotion was in my second year of college. I sat with Dad and said, "I want to work with you after I graduate. I've been preparing. I want to follow your path." He looked proud, but before he could respond, my mother cut in like an ad break, interrupting a good movie. "Emily, are you serious? Another one of your crazy plans?" she asked with that skeptical smirk. "I'm serious. I want to build something like Dad did," I answered confidently. She let out a dramatic sigh, worthy of a soap opera. A woman should just find a decent husband and let him take care of her. That's when I realized there was no point in arguing. It was like trying to explain modern apps to someone who still uses a landline. I gave up on convincing her I wasn't going to live according to her outdated views. I stayed focused on school. Eventually she gave in. "If that's what you want, fine. Just don't come crying later." That was a price I was willing to pay for my independence. Right after graduation, I joined my father's company. The more we worked together, the stronger our bond became, but I didn't know he was in a race against time. In just 6 months, he taught me everything, every strategy, every detail of the business. Then one day he collapsed at the office. The diagnosis turned our lives upside down. The next 5 years were a long, exhausting fight. "Emily, how's the company holding up without your father?" my mother asked, masking her doubt with a thin layer of concern. "It's a challenge," I responded with confidence, "but Dad left me everything I need." The look she gave me, part disbelief, part irritation, only confirmed I'd made the right choice. "Well, just make sure you don't drive the company into the ground," she said, her tone carrying that familiar hint of "I told you so." Second generations tend to do that. During my father's illness, I kept to myself. More arguments with my mother became routine. Even in his declining health, my father insisted on visiting the office occasionally. Every time he stepped through those doors, you could tell he still viewed the company as his domain, even though he knew it was time to let go. "These employees, this company, they mean everything to me, Emily," he told me, once, his voice cracking, "but I know I have to let them go." His words stay with me, heavy in my chest. "I don't know if I can be like you, Dad," I admitted, quietly a lump forming in my throat, but I promise I'll do everything I can to protect what you built. That was the moment my life changed. He didn't just leave me a company, he gave me a dream. Something he built from nothing with his own two hands. From then on, my days blurred together. I handled business affairs all day and spent evenings at the hospital. That routine became my source of strength. My mother, meanwhile, did the bare minimum, bringing fresh clothes, sighing heavily like every visit was a burden. I often caught myself wondering, did she ever feel any gratitude, any empathy, seeing my father so weak after all his sacrifices shattered me, and still she focused on the insignificant while he never stopped giving his all. For a year I kept going, working long hours, visiting the hospital, surviving on little sleep and endless concern. Then one day he quietly passed away in his sleep, in the whirlwind of funeral planning, hospital bills, and legal paperwork. I didn't have time to grieve. As always, my mother expected me to take care of it all. She'd never stepped outside her comfort zone. The day after the funeral, just when I thought I might catch my breath, she came to me. "Well, now that the funeral's over, I bet you feel relieved," she said casually, as if mourning was just another item to check off a list. I took a deep breath. I didn't expect compassion from her after all. I knew who she was. "Please leave this house," she said suddenly. "I just inherited $200 million from your father. I don't need you anymore." She said it like she was reading a script, without a trace of feeling. Her words hit me not because they surprised me, but because no daughter should ever have to hear something like that from her own mother. Arguing with her would have been pointless, like trying to stop a cat from chasing birds. Did she truly believe that money replaced love, that wealth erased all responsibility? With 1,000 thoughts swirling, I made up my mind to leave. By the next day I had packed up, sold my things, and tied up all loose ends. My mother was stunned by how quickly I left. She didn't realize I had been planning this for months, but most importantly, she didn't know my secret, even though she believed she'd inherited $200 million. The truth was very different. My father had entrusted full control of his estate to me. "Your mother doesn't understand the value of money," he once told me. I remembered his instructions clearly. He made me the sole heir and gave me the responsibility of managing her basic expenses. "If you give her everything at once, she'll blow through it in no time," he warned. "And if she complains, don't give her another dime." He said it half joking, half serious. What he left me wasn't just an inheritance. He also gave me a small CD chip with a personal video message direct to my mother. I never imagined I'd need to use it, but recent events changed everything. Not long after my phone rang. "Come back to the house right now," my mother demanded, her voice tight with urgency and frustration. "I'm at work, Mom. What's going on?" I asked, trying to remain composed. "I need to talk to you. It's important. Get here quickly," she insisted. I wasn't sure I'd actually use it, but I had to be prepared. As soon as I stepped inside, the accusations came fast like machine gun. "Hit like on this video. Fire, you took all of your father's inheritance, didn't you? I knew it the moment you left in such a hurry. Hand it over now." Her greed filled the room like a thick fog. I looked at her silently for a few seconds, debating whether to answer or let the video speak for me. "You're unbelievably selfish. You can't even be a proper daughter," she said sharply. I didn't argue. Instead, I simply handed her the SD card. Her face changed from rage to confusion. "What is this?" she asked, turning the card in her hand like it was a foreign object. "You probably don't even know how to play it," I said, my disappointment hidden behind dry sarcasm. I pulled out my laptop, inserted the card, and started the video. The screen lit up, and there he was, my father, as vibrant as I remembered him. My heart skipped a beat. I set the laptop on the table and stepped out, giving her privacy to watch it alone. As I walked down the hallway, I wondered, would his words truly reach her? She had never questioned him in life, but now when I returned, she sat there silent, tears running down her face. I couldn't believe it. I didn't even know she could cry like that. Curiosity tugged at me. What had he said to move her so deeply? But I didn't ask. Maybe I was afraid. Maybe it was something only meant for her. Mom, are you okay? I asked gently. She wiped her tears with trembling fingers. Yes, I'll be all right. I understand now. I'll honor what your father said, and from now on I'll leave everything in your hands. Please go home for today. Call me when you have a moment. I nodded. She needed time. As I drove home, her words lingered in my mind. How did he still manage to reach her so deeply even after death? Days passed, then weeks, still no word from her. Her silence started to worry me. One afternoon during lunch, I decided to check on her. I knocked on the door. No answer. The house was empty. That evening I returned. This time the lights were on. I felt relieved. Sorry for showing up unannounced, I said as she opened the door. I came by earlier, but no one was home. I got a little worried. I was at my part-time job, she replied, casually, like it was the most normal thing in the world. A part-time job? I repeated, stunned. I had always seen her as someone completely opposed to working, almost allergic to the idea. Her sudden shift left me speechless. How did this happen? I asked. Did you watch the video? The one meant just for you? She nodded and slid the SD card toward me. You should watch it too. Emily, take it with you. Are you sure? I asked, feeling enough form in my stomach as I picked up the tiny chip. Go ahead, she said quietly. Her expression was unreadable. I returned to my office, feeling an odd weight on my chest. I sat in the chair that used to be my father's, took a deep breath, and inserted the card into the computer. The screen came alive with his image, familiar, comforting. My dear, he began, his voice steady and thoughtful. If you're watching this, it means you couldn't reach Emily, he began, just as he always had. First, thank you for helping me raise Emily. Without you, I couldn't have managed the business and cared for her at the same time. His words echoed through the room, but something in his tone made me uneasy. Then came the moment that changed everything. You took care of Emily, even though she wasn't your biological daughter, and for that, I'm deeply grateful. It felt like time froze. What was he saying? I'm not his daughter. His words hit me like a thunderclap, but he continued, unaware of the emotional storm he had just triggered. You've stood by me all these years in doing so. You gave up your own goals. You made it this far without much help or support, and I know I'm partly to blame. I provided a life of comfort, but now that I'm gone, I fear things might get difficult for you. My mind was spinning suddenly. So much made sense. Her emotional distance, the bare minimum care, and now his heartfelt words. He spoke with such honesty that it cut deeper than I expected. I'm truly sorry, but I worry about how you'll cope when I'm no longer around. I slowly shut the laptop. My thoughts were tangled, filled with questions, uncertainty, and mixed emotions. I couldn't sleep that night. My brain replayed every word. The next morning I knew I couldn't ignore it. I needed answers. I approached her and said, Mom, I watched Dad's video yesterday. Now I know the truth. My voice trembled as I faced a reality I'd never imagined. I raised you, she said, because your father asked me to. That's the only reason. Her voice was heavy, each word loaded with years of hidden truth. The silence that followed was thick, but I couldn't stop. I needed the full picture. What happened to my biological mother? I asked, determined to understand my story. She took a long breath before answering. You were born to my sister, and your father, my sister, passed away shortly after giving birth to you. Your father was heartbroken. I promised him I'd raise you, and so I became your mother. Her words were both comforting and disorienting. Finally, pieces of my life were falling into place. Her detachment, her way of caring, it all made sense now. I remembered snippets from my childhood. Her working at a cafe, smiling genuinely as she served customers, and the joy in her voice when she spoke about wanting her own cafe someday. That was her dream, and she gave it up to raise me, inspired by my father's message and maybe by the weight of finally sharing the truth. She made a decision she was going to pursue that dream again. She picked up a part-time job focused on starting fresh. One afternoon during a quiet chat, she told me I should have done this years ago. Working is actually fun, and I'm surprised by how capable I feel. I never thought I'd enjoy it so much. I looked At her, unsure what to say. Was it my fault you never got to work before? I asked softly. I'm sorry if it was. She shook her head gently. No, that was my choice, but the truth is I was never naturally good with kids. I did my best, but I couldn't be the mother you really needed. Her honesty caught me off guard. For the first time we were speaking without filters, no blame, no barriers. Just two people opening up after years of distance. Over the following days our conversations continued. Slowly we began to understand each other, not only as mother and daughter, but as two women reconnecting after years of silence. And it was during one of those talks that we decided together to use part of the money my father had left behind enough to help fund her dream cafe. Since she started working, my mom had changed. She became more grounded and thoughtful. When we discussed using part of the inheritance for the cafe, she hesitated. It was a clear shift from the woman who once asked me to leave the house without a second thought. While managing my own job, I supported her throughout the process of opening the cafe. We began spending more time together, sharing responsibilities and small moments. Something unexpected. Subscribe for more revenge stories. Happened. Our relationship slowly began to grow. It wasn't perfect or easy, but for the first time it truly felt like a mother-daughter bond. Though our relationship had started in a very different way, something meaningful was finally taking shape. When it came to everyday expenses, my mom stood firm. She insisted on covering them with her own income, refusing to touch my father's inheritance. Promise me you'll let me know if you're ever struggling. Dad trusted me to look after you, I said, genuinely concerned. She gave a soft smile, revealing the independence she had been steadily building. I'll be fine. Living alone isn't too expensive, she replied. But when the topic returned to cafe costs, her expression shifted again. It was clear she still wanted to maintain her independence, but also recognized she might need support. After a moment of reflection, she finally said, I'll lean on you. Then I'm really looking forward to this, so let's both give it our best. Her drive was unmistakable, and so was the hope in her eyes. After everything we'd been through, we had finally become a real family. The fact that she wasn't my biological mother could have pulled us apart, but instead it brought us closer. It felt like learning the truth had come at exactly the right time. Your cafe opens tomorrow, I said with a proud smile. Your dream is finally coming true. She looked up at me, visibly moved. Seeing you help build this cafe reminds me of my own younger dreams. I think that's why I'm here today. It's because of you and your father. Grateful, I replied. Thank you, Mom. She held my hand and said firmly, I'll always be your mother. In that moment I felt a new closeness between us. From then on I knew our relationship would be stronger than ever. After my father's passing, I had come to accept the truth of our circumstances. I made the choice to stay with her and even considered returning to my hometown so we could live closer. Again, still my mom had her usual concerns. You eat terribly when you're by yourself. I guess I'll have to start looking after you again, she said with a mix of mild complaint and warmth. Sometimes I imagine how surprised and proud my father would be if he could see how close we'd become. His home, his business, and the inheritance he left behind, everything was now safe in my care. As our bond deepened, I made a decision I would honor the legacy he left us. Every day together we began visiting the graves of both my father and my biological mother, my mom's older sister, to share updates about our lives. Those quiet visits brought a sense of peace and connection, as if we were showing them that everything had finally settled into place. After completing the adoption process, I was officially registered as my mother's daughter. It was more than just paperwork. It was the affirmation of a bond that went beyond blood. Today, we are truly a family. This experience taught me a powerful lesson. Always seek the truth before reacting out of anger or jumping to conclusions. Sometimes the answers we search for come with unexpected lessons that help us grow. Thank you for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video and subscribe for more. Your support means so